Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canadian Dentist Podcast. I have joining me today Dr. James Younger, who you probably will know from the company TempStars. James is the founder of TempStars. He's a fellow dentist. I'm just excited to have James on our podcast today to talk about a few things. Of course, we want to hear a little bit about TempStars, but we really want to dig into a topic that is foundational to every practice owner, in fact, every business owner out there, which is building a strong team culture and why that is so important. Not just the importance, but even some of the foundational pieces of how does one actually do that. So welcome, James. Great to have you.
Oh, amazing, Carla. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So it was so nice getting to know you. And we met at the conventions, and I'd also known you by reputation as somebody who really does focus on building healthy team cultures and really turning practices around. So thrilled to be here and happy to dive into the conversation and talk about culture and how and why it's so important for success in dental practices from a business standpoint, but also just personal fulfillment as well.
Awesome. I would like to just take a moment to talk about your journey. So, as a dentist, I think I read 99 grad. So
Yep.
you've got a few years on me. That's great. 25 years as a practicing dentist. So you've been around enough to see the profession change and go through a few iterations.
My
Um,
goodness. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm curious to hear just a little bit about sort of your backstory, your entrepreneurial journey, and what got you to where we are today.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, U of T grad 1999, so 20, I guess going on 26 years now. Love dentistry. I don't think there will be a day that I don't do clinical dentistry. I still practice out of a mental health hospital and I do volunteer dentistry as well. But my career started fairly normally. I associated for a few years, worked at various dental offices that way. And then at one point, I think I'd been out for maybe 8 years and I opened up a dental practice from scratch in Stony Creek, Ontario. And it was just a new build. So built it and grew the patient base for about 5 years there. And my goodness, what a learning experience that way. And the seed of me really starting to care about good leadership and culture because never having owned a practice or really led a team before, just realizing the foibles of not focusing on those things and the challenges that come with not putting a high importance on those. And then from there, I had sold that practice and I had bought a fairly high end full mouth reconstructive practice out of Oakville, Ontario. So in there, doing full mouth reconstructions, cosmetic dentistry, implant, sinus lifts, laser dentistry, that sort of thing. Loved the comprehensive dentistry. And at that point, I was really starting to get my legs from a leadership standpoint, from a culture building standpoint, and that sort of thing. And it was at that office that I was struggling because I had a dental hygienist on my team that was calling in sick quite often and often at 3 o'clock in the morning. And anybody who owns a dental office and they get a 3 o'clock text from a hygienist who's got a full patient roster first thing in the morning, it's immediate. I'm not in your stomach and you can't sleep. And what am I going to do? And do I drive into the office at 7 in the morning? And all of those things that were coming with it. And I just thought at the time, there has to be some way I could let people know that I need somebody. I must be able to notify a hygienist or somebody that I need somebody for 8 in the morning. And at the time, there were no digital solutions for dental temping in North America. And so it was kind of a new idea. And even it's funny that at the time, Uber hadn't even arrived in Toronto. So I didn't even know what Uber was. And so I was talking to people about this idea I had, and they'd say, "Is that like Uber?" And I'd say, "I don't know, but if you say it is, maybe it is." But that ended up being sort of what the model is of just connecting two sides of a marketplace. There's dental offices that need good people, short term, short notice, and then there's people who are looking for work that way too. And that was sort of the seed of the idea. And that was 2017 launched it. As a side note, I spent a full 18 months building the first version of it, not knowing what I was doing at all. After 18 months, realized the whole thing was a mess. And I didn't even tell anyone I was building anything at that point. I threw all the code in the garbage. All that time and money was wasted. But realizing the problem was me, and I just didn't know what I was doing. So I took it upon myself to learn full stack web development, UI, UX design, database architecture, all of the different parts, and rapid prototyping. And so with those tools, I didn't build it myself, but I was able to communicate with the person who did build it. And it took 6 weeks. So all of that education, as much of it as it was an investment that serves me to this day, it reduced the cost and the time from 18 months of building out nothing worthwhile to in 6 weeks building out the version that we ended up launching and that sort of thing. So I've always been somebody who really tries to adopt and learn anything that I might be tackling so that I could be informed and have those really meaningful conversations along the way that way.
It's a really interesting point you just brought up about, trying to figure it out yourself versus putting in the time, getting the education, finding the fast track, if you will, right? Other people have done this. There is a way to do it. There is a way to bring a platform to market in 6 weeks versus 18 months.
Yeah.
And gee, maybe I need to stop banging my head against the wall. We've all been there. We've all done it.
Yep.
But you bring up a really good point because many business owners, if not most, and dentists included in that mix, will try to, continue to sort of just keep pushing this thing uphill day after day, day after day, day after day, year after year, eventually decade after decade, wondering like when is this going to get easier? It shouldn't be this hard.
Yeah.
Versus the ones that get it, we can say, and step aside and go in a different path and say, okay, where can I get the education, training, skill set quickly so that I can run and not start from crawling?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's one of the transformative books I've read. I was just and still am a huge reader, but one of my early books that was transformative for me was The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
Mhm.
And the concept I gravitated to was this idea of delegating, not abdicating. So if you are abdicating something, you're saying, I don't know anything about this. You must know what you're doing and just be good at it. And you said you're great and this is your profession. So let me know how it goes. And so that's often a recipe in my experience. And it seems to bear out that for disaster and miscommunications and things not going well versus taking the time to understand a concept. You don't have to be the expert at it, but you have to know enough about it to have conversations about it, to have clear vision about it, to be able to communicate in a respectable way about it, and then delegate it to somebody to do it for you. So you're not doing it yourself, but to empower yourself with those tools for communication and helping guide things rather than saying, I don't know, you must know what you're doing, do a good job, and I hope I like it, sort of thing.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, when we talk about delegation versus abdication, it's interesting. This comes right out of our leadership course.
Ah,
Um, the average practice owner, business owner, is exactly that perspective. Well,
yeah,
I'm going to hire you. You're going to do it because I don't have time and I don't want to, quote unquote, waste time doing this. So you do it. That's what I pay you for. But missing the point that really good delegation requires that I actually know what this person's going to do, not everything about the how, but the stages of what it looks like and be able to communicate, okay, this is the vision in my mind, and communicate that super clearly to the other person, the other party, so that they see the same picture that you do as the end product. And then I can actually have meaningful discussion and know whether we are on track or off track. Am I
100%.
getting taken for a ride or not? So basically, the business owner needs to be the quarterback here
Yeah,
and call the play, not necessarily, maybe even the coach, not
right.
not necessarily running the play directly, but know if the play is good or bad, know what needs to happen and when, not necessarily how to solve all the nuances. So you don't have to know how to write all the code. You just need to know, kind of the checkpoints, right?
Yeah, 100%. And what I like about that too is part of the meaningful conversations is having an appreciation for the difficulty of the work that's done. So it's making sure things are on track, but having conversations say, wow, that was amazing that you did that because I have an appreciation for the amount of work and expertise that was required for that versus I don't know what you're doing. You say you're an expert. Hey, good job. I guess I like it, sort of thing. So to engage people from a leadership standpoint by appreciating what they do, I think is super valuable too.
Yeah, excellent. So we're kind of coming around culture from a sort of a roundabout way, and this is great. We talked about this is something that I think all dentists can relate to, but certainly it's my story as well. You start a practice, and you're excited. You've got all the knowledge that you think you need, and
Right.
you land day one, patient's team. I got employees. I got all this stuff going on, and I'm ready to go. And then, very quickly in, you realize that you don't have half the tools that you need. You have the clinical part, more or less, but the leadership, the managing a team, leading a team, I don't even know what that is. Culture, what? Like, who's got time for this stuff?
Yeah.
Um, Very quickly, you end up crashing into the wall, realizing like, wow, there's so much more to this game. And it's interesting that, your experience is, I think, what we hope for most business owners, right? As we're talking to people about these subjects, is as you grow, you realize how much of a gap there is between the leader that you need to be and the leader that you started out
My
as.
goodness. Yeah.
And that's not a knock. It's just like it's just a realization that you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, because you don't learn that in school. And we've also had bosses, right? For better or worse, we've often had what we would consider a boss or an employer. And so maybe we have a vision of what it means to be an employer and a boss of somebody, but that isn't even close to a semblance of what leadership is, or building a healthy team culture, being a good coach, and things like that.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of, I think, misperceptions about what it means. And there's many, and I know this because I was one, and this is why I'm so passionate about it, is because if you would have met me when I first opened up that dental practice, when it was a new build, I wasn't that great to work for. I just didn't, to your point, I didn't know the importance of all of those different things. And I just hadn't had the experience to realize where my own shortcomings were, because it's easy to look out and say, why isn't everybody working? I'm paying them. Why aren't they doing better? Without internally reflecting and saying, well, how am I engaging them? How am I as a leader? How am I building a team? And all of those different elements, which are so critical, because without them, you are constantly looking out the window at why is everybody else not doing better?
Yeah, great point. And it kind of comes back around to that conversation we had about delegating versus abdicating. I hired you, I'm paying you. Can't you just do it?
Right.
But do it the way I want you to do it and read my mind in the process
Yeah.
is yeah, I mean, really. But this is where we start, right? And I agree with you. When I started as a business owner, I'll go a step further. I'll say I know I wasn't very good to work for at all. I mean, if
Mm,
people quit, they should have quit. I'm
right.
surprised more didn't.
Same
Um,
with me. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if when we start talking about this concept now, we get it, and there are many bright dentists out there who get it quickly, and that's great. They got a leap on me for sure, out of the gate. When we talk about culture from the perspective of a dental team, I mean, really, it's not different than any other team. But when we start talking about culture, well, what are we talking about? Because culture seems kind of fuzzy for people. It's just like, oh, I don't know, what do we do? We sit around, we have dinner, we sing
Right. Right.
kumbaya.
Right.
Like, what is culture? What am I trying to do here?
Well, I love that question because you're right. Everybody seems to have a different take on it. I'm really interested to hear yours because I, over the last few years, developed a fairly strong feeling about what I consider it to be, but it doesn't mean it's the right definition. So when I think of it, I think of culture as the result and the mirror of the other things you've done. And so when you, as a business leader or an owner or a company, you establish what your mission is and the thing you're trying to accomplish. And then you establish your vision and you're communicating the vision of how the world will look. But then you've got values, and the values are how you conduct yourself as a leader and as an owner and as a coach and as somebody who is in charge of a team of sorts. And those values and living those values and collecting people around shared values, you've got all of those things in place. And what you're staring at then is your culture. It's how you've conducted yourself as a leader. It's the values that you've established in your business and with your team. It's your dedication to gardening and managing your team aligned with those values. And eventually, all of that shapes into something that is culture. And in one of my talks, I say you don't get to choose what your culture is. Your culture is just staring you back in the face based on other choices you've made and other values you have. But you don't get to write, our culture is this, and then it becomes that. The other things you can, the mission, the vision, and the values you can define, and the leaders should be living the values and all of those things. But the culture is just the result of those. And so that's my take on it. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Culture really is sort of the net outcome of all of the other activities that we're doing. But we don't, when we look at culture, we think I need to build culture. Okay, so I might pick an item off a list and say we're going to do that. What we don't realize is that it is a holistic um, approach, that it's all of these things. And most importantly, it's a reflection of me as the leader.
100%.
So if my culture isn't very good, then I first have that mirror held up. I'm the first one I see in it because that's really where it starts. If you want to build a team that looks like whatever your vision is, if you don't look like that, it's not going to be reflected back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do agree with you fully. It is that reflection of your mission, vision, values, and your input into the team. It is how it is directly proportional to how much energy you put into the team. And we might think that well, I pay these people. Can't they just, why, what do they got to complain about? Why are they not excited?
Right.
Why are they not super excited to deliver dental care? Yeah, I get it. But again, you make or break that very quickly, right?
Yeah.
And they are a direct reflection of you. The team that you have today is a direct reflection of you because people like them, you're going to end up attracting people to your employee who are a lot like you. That's who you're
Yeah.
going to hire, bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And there's that old saying of you can buy somebody's hands, but you can't buy their heart. And
Hmm.
so to me too, and to add to that a little is culture being the thing that defines those micro moments when it's not in the standard operating procedure manual, right? It's the thing that guides the decisions, and it's people how they interact with each other when the manager's not looking over their shoulder and all of those different things. The other part I would add to it that I really feel is critical and not easy, and maybe one of the hardest parts, is being diligent and having difficult conversations and realizing when people aren't a fit for our culture or shared values or things like that. Because you can have all of those things, but without that commitment and that diligence to maintaining it and nurturing it and growing it, yeah, things can devolve even with the best of intentions. So I feel like that's a pretty important component of it too.
Yeah, great point. It's like if you keep the weakest people on the team, you end up losing the best people because they won't stay on a team. Well, it's like to take a professional team, right? If the coach can't tell that you've got someone every time they're out on the field or on the ice or whatever sport you're thinking of, they're just like they're dragging the team down and keep putting them out there.
Yep.
Um,
And
your top,
probably rewarding them to some degree.
yeah, like
Yeah.
your top players are going to be like, hey, see ya, like I want to trade.
Yeah.
And this is what happens if we're not intentional. So very clear intentionality about building culture. I agree. Great points.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And in the opposite vein is when you maintain great people, they want to work with other great people and they know great people. And then you end up like attracts like, and then you end up strengthening a team in the other direction too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
An interesting barometer of culture, something that I talk to our clients about is, if no one, if your team isn't recommending or referring their friends in the profession to work in your practice,
Right.
that's the first kind of red flag that we have. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not quite there with culture yet, right?
Right.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So, so if we want to build culture, I mean, we know, I mean, we have a really good handle on how many boxes there are, but I think it might be worth fleshing this out a little bit. You
Yeah.
know, Developing culture requires clear intentionality. It's not something that you can just show up one day and say, I want to have a great culture. I've written my mission, vision, values. We're
Yeah.
going to have a great team. There's a little more to it, right? So
100%.
let's talk a little bit about the process of building and developing culture on a team.
Well, I'd almost have two takes on it from two separate vantage points, maybe. If you're starting a brand new practice, it might be possible, maybe if you're an experienced leader, to build and craft a team around shared values, following the vision and pursuing the vision and the mission and all of that, and kind of start that way. And now I don't have a strong feeling to say that's the easiest way, but I could see there's a trajectory for that because you're finding, hiring, interviewing, and doing performance evaluations with a team that you're building. I think that on a lot of dentists in my situation as well, once I started the second practice was you kind of have the team that you have, and sometimes with that team, it's helping them buy in and get excited by the thing you're trying to build, and realizing too that some people are not going to be a fit for that direction as well, and we're very happy with not having built a better culture and that sort of thing. So I think it's kind of redirecting a ship instead of building a ship sometimes, depending on the team that you've got. But I think it's for me, I really emphasize a lot of self-reflection as a leader. What are your values? What do you care about? Because I think you could say a set of values, and not everyone should. I think maybe there's core values like a commitment to good patient care and all of those things and integrity. But around that, there can be a whole sphere of other values. So the internal reflection to elucidate what those are, and then figuring out how you live those values, and then establishing that vision and mission, then being a diligent gardener of all of that, and then eventually the makeup and alignment of the team would evolve over that, with people self-selecting out, or with difficult exiting conversations, or with the rest of the team being excited about that new direction. I don't know, what's your take on it?
I want to expand on one thing you mentioned. You said being
Yeah.
a diligent gardener. It's one of the key things with culture building and intentionality of culture building is that it's not a one and done. This is a regular repeat
Hmm.
thing. And again, a novice business owner would say, but I've told them this before, one time at a
Yeah.
meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
But, and I tell our clients, like, hey, when our practice was most successful, we closed our office once a month for half a day.
Mm,
So 17 operatories shut down, 40 people in a meeting room, and half a day. So you could run the math on that. It wasn't a cheap thing to do, but
right.
again, am I looking for pennies or dollars? Because when we had those meetings, the team was on, we bumped the energy back up substantially. Well, an energized team, a fully committed team, when you have a strong culture, like your top performers can work, one employee could replace three who are not
Yeah.
engaged, right? And you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
100%.
you have this ability to supercharge your team to get actual real ROI on the team that I have and have a great time doing it because it's a lot more fun to own a practice where the culture is really humming and the team gets along and everyone's excited and pulling forward versus the office that's like, people show up because they got a paycheck. I just hired this person because it's the only one I could find, and
Right.
I'm dragging them along on top of trying to do dentistry and be the producer and all of these things. So
Yeah.
there really is a need to focus on and step back and realize I need to actually keep this in volley. I need to keep reminding, keep repeating the reason why we're here, why we do what we do, how it impacts the community, and have these conversations, facilitate this within our team, because that then starts to really self-feed. And unfortunately, people forget. People, there's a
Yeah.
little
It drift.
disengagement
Yeah.
happens. Yeah, your culture can get sick, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And I find too, and I'm sure most clinicians would feel the same way, it's harder to want to do and to treatment plan long, complex cases when you feel like you aren't working with a team who's aligned in a healthy culture. Like you just have more energy to treat patients. And so there's many ways that that culture drives the business, like you described. But one of them too is just the energy you have going into the office and the enthusiasm you have. And that's infectious with patients and higher treatment case acceptance and all of those, but also this idea of I do have the energy. I want to be here. I want to be doing these more complex cases because I'm supported by a great team who's kind of aligned and supporting each other.
Yeah, and to push that one step further, because it's a great point. If I, as the practitioner, and I'm energized now, and I'm like, yeah, you know what, we could do this because I know I've got the team to support me. That energy, that excitement that I have trickles into my team. My team then is the face to my patients.
Mm-hmm.
Patients feel that, right?
Yep.
Like an energized team and a strong culture, when your patients come in and they interact with your team, they feel that. That influences case acceptance in a way that we can't measure it, but we know it's
It's true.
significant.
Yeah. Because even we all walk around with these little radars about if I'm in a business or if I'm in a store or in an office, is it a tense smile by the receptionist or is everybody kind of getting along and feeling comfortable with each other where they know that they feel like they belong? And yeah, there's without that, you do patients will in it. And we all as humans will have that hesitation of like, is this, am I here in my best, do they have my best interests at heart? Can I trust them? Why do people feel tense here? Is there something going on and that kind of thing? Yeah.
Yeah, you brought up a good point, that culture determines really what happens when a situation is not in the SOPs, right? And that's, I think, to your point, when you are interacting with the business, your radar is on, and you're always subconsciously paying attention to, my is this the right thing? Are these guys know what they're talking about? And you don't really get too many second chances on issues of trust with a company, especially dental practice. People love going to the dentist.
You're
So,
right.
if you have built this trust and you have this opportunity, well, if I'm interacting with this business and something doesn't go perfectly, which is going to happen every day, how does the team handle that? How does
Yep.
the person I'm dealing with, who I trust, handle it? Is it I'll have to go and get the manager, or I'm going to talk to the doctor, or I don't know, check with my boss, or policy says,
Yep.
versus, hey, you know what? Let's look after you.
Let's
Uh,
make this right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I was reading a study just not that long ago, and it said that people will be more loyal to a company that where they had a problem that was solved the way they want, more so than if they work with a company where it always goes well. So you could offer top service consistently and you'll build that trust and loyalty and engagement. But if something goes wrong with someone and you make it right, their loyalty will be stronger than had everything gone well. And that's an interesting thing to think about from a dental office standpoint, but for really any business about how you handle hitches that are inevitably going to happen.
Yeah, great point. Service recovery is a thing that actually needs to be intentionally figured out, studied, and part of your culture. Yeah,
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 yeah.
agreed. Now,
Oh, go
yeah,
ahead. Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
Well, one of the things too that, and I'm sure it's your experience and it's everyone's, because often when we talk about culture and how it sounds when everything is perfect and rosy, right? But I picture myself 20 years ago listening to this and I think, how am I supposed? I think that it's important to also recognize it's hard, right? Like if you are diligent about your team and your culture and your values, there's I think I would venture to say inevitably sleepless nights where you have to think about difficult conversations you have to have the next day or the day after. Like it, and it's easy to shy away from those and say, oh, I'm sure it's hard. I think that it's worth just calling out that it's hard, but it's worth it. It's worth it for who you become as a leader and who it and what it means for your team and your patients. But I would not say that it's always easy or rosy or just do this because it's just sometimes very, very difficult.
Yeah, great point. That's spot on. To say that, yeah, culture is just a three-step process or a 10-step process and a checklist is just not the case. It is going to take time. And in as many offices, it's going to take months, if not years. And the key is you can move the needle quickly, but it's a continuum. It's not like I've
Mm-hmm.
arrived at a place where we have a good culture. You'll have a good culture now that you think is a good culture. You keep working at it intentionally, and a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, you look back and be like, wow, I thought we were good then.
Right.
With my continued effort, wow, this is like I never thought this was possible.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, as you know, and just having a good, well, I couldn't do it myself. I had some help and coaches and consultants in my practices as well, just to shed some light on my own need for development and things like that. And to your point and your services, you need somebody with who's going to kind of block off those times and make sure and be your coach and be your guide and help you achieve that because it is hard to do alone because you walk in and you're treating patients, then you go home and you finish treating patients, you take the gloves off and you go home. And to have somebody with that perspective from a coaching standpoint to help you carve that time out, but also provide that guidance to help move forward, I think is super critical.
Yeah, it shortcuts the learning curve dramatically. That's what I found.
Yeah.
And I, like you, have had coaches, and consultants and mentors and still do. And it is just different. I mean, I know when I look at a client practice and I can look at it with fresh eyes, I can step in, kind of peek in and be like, yeah, problems here, fix that, change that, let's do this. But if you're in it every day, and I know this from my own business, if you're in it every day, you can't see it the way someone else is going to see it,
Yeah.
who's third party to you, right?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, which kind of comes back around to that conversation we had earlier about, just taking the time to invest and understand what it takes to actually accomplish this thing I want to accomplish, even if all the moving parts don't have to be done by me, which ideally they're not, because dentist is typically the busiest person in the office.
Yeah.
So it's engaging the team. And to your previous point, sometimes the culture gets sick,
Yep.
culture flu.
Yeah.
When we start to see signs, or maybe I guess what are some signs that the culture is starting to go sideways on you?
Well, my take on it is that stepping like take a one step back from that part is as a leader, as an owner, figuring out your values. So for me, that leadership is all there's a lot of introspection and intention behind it, like you said. And so figuring out what your values are. And then the reason I really, really, at least personally, harp on the importance of values is they're your anchor point for all conversations. So if you're hiring somebody, then you tell them your values ahead of time to say these are what's important, this is what our value, this is our mission, all of that. So it's a communication tool that anchors every other conversation going forward. And so if you say these are our values, And these are, and maybe it's high quality clinical care, however your practice is defined by the values. But there will be clinical elements, there will be communication style elements in there, there will be collaborative team elements in there, all of these different ways that you value that your specific business or practice is going to do. When you communicate those really clearly, then it's clear when somebody is not of those values. And by having thought about and communicated those values consistently and early on, and in an interview process to say, are you aligned with these values? And of course, the likely candidate who wants the position will say yes. You say, that's fantastic. Some will self-select out, which is probably the best thing that could happen, right? Because if you're clear about your values and someone says, not for me. Because imagine one of your values is constant innovation. Well, then you're the dentist that's buying the latest CEREC, the scanners, all of those things, and you're the dentist that always has the latest toys. That's great for some people, but not necessarily great for all people who always just want to feel comfortable like they know everything. So there's going to be different ways. But then it sets the stage for, if culture is drifting, then there's one or two or people that might be drifting and causing that cultural drift. Then you've got those anchor conversations back to values to say, let's have a chat about this. Do you remember when we were talking about one of the values of the practice is this? Well, these certain things, they're not quite aligned with what we value in this practice. And here's the impact that it's having on the patient care or the rest of the team or all of these different things. And then ideally, that's not the first time they've heard that as a value and they can anchor it back to it. So that's kind of where I would say, like, it really empowers you as a leader if you really have done that introspection and live your own values, and rather than just put them on a poster, but not a do as I say, do as I do, but do as I do because I also share and live these values. Then I think that at least gives you that empowerment for conversations to course correct on culture. That was a bit of a long answer, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you brought up two really good, really important points. So sort of dropping waypoints as you go, so that we know when we deviated, where do we start to deviate, and how do we get back? We know where we're supposed to be, and here's our sort of somewhat objective way to look at this. The other thing that you brought up, which I think is super important, is this idea that if I've got my team sort of firing on all cylinders, everything's going well. Then we drift. How do I have those conversations? What do I say? How do I engage my team in a way that I'm not saying like do as I do, not as do as I say, not as I do? Well, the big one is really, what am I reflecting? Because
Mm,
if I tell my team, hey, I want you guys to be on time. I want you to show up on time in the morning, and I'm 5 minutes late for the first
right,
patient.
right, right. Yeah.
I'm toast. It's like if I tell
Yep.
my child, hey, you know what? We don't do this in this house, but I do it.
Yep.
What am I saying? I don't believe what I'm telling you because I don't
Yeah.
do it. Well,
100%.
that creates distrust. It creates all kinds of issues from a team perspective. Team's going to look at you and be like, yeah, I don't, what you're saying, I don't hear because I'm seeing your actions and they don't line up. So subconsciously, I'm just tuning you out now because it's just noise.
Yeah.
Where as leaders, if we look at it from a different perspective, is if I'm trying to build culture, I'm trying to grow my team professionally, but also personally. If I can take
Mhm.
them on a personal development journey, make them better people, so that when they go home, they've got tools, new tools, a different way of looking at things. It actually helps them in their personal life.
100%.
The loyalty is substantially greater than if it's just a paycheck. If we all grow together, I invest in them, I take them to training courses, we all, learn new skills together that actually help them outside of the office, of course, in the office too, then we elevate everyone. But by doing so, that also creates it's a stick factor, it's loyalty to your practice, to your business, but also to you as the leader,
Yeah.
so that now when we start to shift direction or we want to push a little bit in a new direction, or we've got changes that we want to implement in the practice, I trust you.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll go.
Yep. 100%. In I find that, at least for me, and again, this is coming at it from an ideal standpoint, because I know there's also realities where sometimes you paint yourself in a corner in certain relationships with people at work and things like that. But all that being said, if you have established yourself as somebody who cares about this person and respects that person, and that person feels like they belong, and you've established that kind of trust, it does make those conversations easier because now you're not coming at it at a conversation of course correction or culture correction from a top down. Hey, you're almost putting your arm around the person and say, hey, what's going on? Like, remember we were talking about this, and is there something we could do about that? Maybe, and then possibly the person long term doesn't work out, but coming at it from that approach, I feel like there's investment ahead of that so that they know where you're coming from when you're having those conversations as a real person, and they feel like they do belong there and they want to continue to belong there, but they have to know what it means to belong in that culture, I guess, is part of it too.
Yeah, really good point. No one, I mean, we call them difficult conversations because they're difficult conversations. I mean, that's just by definition. No one wants to have these conversations. However, one thing and that I might suggest is that, take away from anyone listening, which I think is going to what you're saying here, James, that if I'm going to have a corrective conversation or I'm going to have a difficult conversation, and my goal is I still want this person to work here. I need them to stop doing this or start doing that.
Yeah.
The perspective is how can I communicate this in a way that lifts them up, not puts them down? And to the degree to which I can do that, is the
Mm-hmm.
degree to which we're going to be successful here. And me as a leader, that's a benchmark for me.
Yeah. I love that. And like imagine somebody's just struggling with bite links. I don't know. Let's make that up, right? And so then you can say, man, you're not having a conversation like if you don't fix your overlap, I'm going to terminate you. You're saying you are a rock star and you're crushing it everywhere. Let's see what we can do to get those, because what's happening is with that overlap, I can't see carries as well as I want to, and I'm worried about the patients that way. So there could be little things like that that still gives them that feedback, but at the same time makes them know that they're still an important person in the team.
Yeah, great point. Maybe we might shift gears just for a moment.
Yeah.
Many people look at culture, like investing in culture, as this airy-fairy thing. I don't get it. Why do I need to do? Why do I need to spend money on it? Because we can't say I put this much, so many dollars into culture building, team building, and I got this ROI out of it.
Right.
There isn't a clear metric, but everyone, well, I don't know if I can say everyone, but those who have, you know, been or have achieved a level of success that is greater than the average will tell you that culture is just like the most important thing in your business, trumps your strategies and your planning and
Right.
protocols any day of the week. Give me a strong team, the rest is easy. How do we quantify that for people? How do you talk about that with people? They to get them to understand the need to put this time and energy in.
Well, it's just fully agree with what you're saying, and listening to the way you were describing it too. One of my thoughts, and this is a brand new thought, just as you were saying that, is that culture will trump strategy and it will trump everything else. But if we think about culture as the reflection of what the other things you're doing, it's almost like the other things you're doing are the thing that's going to trump everything else. And then you're developing a culture through those other things. So, yes, I would, and this, like I said, this is a brand new, fresh baked thought, but culture, yes, but culture being a reflection. What did you do to build that reflection in a way that is going to trump everything? And that's values and mission and clarity and communication and all of those other things. From a business standpoint, and I liked it always, I think of this analogy when you were saying about taking the time off from your office, which is not an inexpensive time to have everybody in a meeting and things like that. But there's this idea of stop running to tie your shoes. So when you're tying your shoes, you're not going forward. And you could say, well, I'm not making any progress, but when you tie your shoes the right way, then you'll be able to run faster. And so sometimes there's that pause to build that healthy culture, to take that time for self-reflection, for values, that ends up doing all of those great things that do drive your business results, like, I don't know, bigger treatment plans, more comprehensive care, better case acceptance, less turnover. We all know what turnover costs, either paying recruiter fees or by just somebody throws the drill out because they didn't know that it was wrapped. You always get these things whenever you have new people joining the team that slows everybody down a little bit. So my feeling from a business standpoint is it is an ROI, and there's probably statistics that would quantify it, but there are just genuine impacts on it in terms of finding and keeping great people that drive your business forward, getting internal referrals, like you said, people referring their friends who are also great people. That saves on recruiting costs, and you're probably getting great people on your team, and patients are trusting you, so they're going ahead with more. And then you have The other thing I like too is at my office, I was rarely the person who had the best idea in the room in a meeting. But when you have a great culture, people come up with their own ideas, and you have this really great collaborative jam sessions about maybe marketing ideas or treatment ideas for patients, or why don't we give them hot towels, or all of those different things. All of those things that build the business come from that collaborative, healthy team culture, I feel.
Yeah, great point. And the best part about that is if the team is generating the ideas, they're already bought into it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as though you're just cascading things down and dragging them along. It ends up being a great collaborative session about ways you could grow the business.
Yeah. Awesome. I feel like we could probably talk for another 3 hours about this topic.
I agree. I don't know if anybody want to listen to this for that long, but I feel like I could talk with you for that long for sure.
Maybe we might leave our listeners with a parting thought here. If you were, so we've got, let's say we'll take the perspective of I'm a new practice owner, or I'm starting up a practice. I'm even 10 years into my career, and I'm struggling with team. What would you tell a person, maybe a piece of advice or two, on how do you actually solve this Rubik's Cube of team culture?
Well, if pithy points, I would say try to maybe for me, I was always a big reader, books on tape when I was driving, reading books and that sort of thing. So there's probably like I really liked that E-Myth Revisited, which I thought was fantastic. And there's a lot of great business leadership culture books that would probably provide those gems of insight. For me as well, self-reflection and really looking at there's a to be honest, do you know Paul Homily,
Mhm.
Carla? Yeah, to be honest, is he still with us? Is he still? I don't know if he is, but anyway, one of the things he said was one of the best things about becoming a good leader is the person you become, because you can't be it inherently changes you. And
Mhm.
so just be open to that self-reflection and see and developing your values. But it's hard, like we just said, you can't do it alone. So find some great help, find some good coaching, consulting, that sort of thing, because that person will help guide you. So you're not learning it from the ground up, but also help you carve out that time and guide the process that way. So that would be those are my bits of advice.
Love it. Shameless plug, the Leadership Excellence book for dentists that we put out last year. It's a really short read for anyone who's interested in some kind of key, just here's what I do about these topics. So I'll put that out there too.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, I feel like we could probably have a part two and a part three, which we may discuss doing that.
Yeah.
If people are interested, if I get some feedback on it, we may actually do that. Um, James, I thank you for your time. This has been awesome. This is one of my favorite subjects. I see that it is also one of yours.
Very much so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've loved the conversation too, Carlos. So thanks for having me on. And maybe I'll just do the quickest of shameless plugs too. TempStars from a temping and hiring standpoint, largest in North America. If you need anybody for fast, easy temping, or we also have this amazing job board that's quite game changing. We're there for you too, tempstars.com.
Canada and the US now.
And in the US, yeah. Yeah, we're in, I think, six US cities and big visions for being across North America. So if we're not in your city yet, it won't be long.
Fantastic. So keep an eye out for TempStars. We have clients across North America who will hear this. So that's great. James,
Amazing.
thank you so much. I appreciate having you. Thank you for your time and great insights.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure and an honor. Thanks, Carlo.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.